If you still think that the more days you train, the more gains you're gonna make, well then this video is for you. But first, that's the stuff. I've been in the fitness industry for about 8 years now, and I genuinely don't think I've been asked any question more often than which training split is going to be the best for optimizing gains. Other than maybe, do you even lift, bro? And the answer is, like every good question in fitness, it depends. So here's what I want you to think about when it comes to designing your own perfect training split for you. The first and most important thing to consider when it comes to designing your own training split is how many days per week can you actually commit to coming into the gym and training. Not how many days would you love to in an ideal world with unlimited time and resources available. How many days can you actually regularly commit to being in the gym lifting weights? We'd all love to be able to train every single day, but A, that's not optimal anyway, and B, if you can train Monday, Wednesday, and Friday regularly, that's more than enough. That's awesome. And if you're routinely having to skip 2 workouts per week because you're trying to do a 5-day split in 3 days, this is going to be a problem for 2 main reasons. Number 1, that program is written with 5 training days in mind as part of the bigger whole picture of the program. And the second thing is, if you're routinely missing workouts, you're routinely not ticking the boxes that you've set for yourself, and you're going to consistently feel like you're underperforming and not showing up as much as you should be. And the more negativity you bring into your fitness journey, the less likely you are to stick to it and eventually get the results that you're after. Whereas if you simply commit to a realistic amount of training days per week and follow a training split designed to get you the most out of that, you'll get to the end of every week looking back pretty happy because you've ticked all the boxes that you needed to tick. So once we've committed to how many days per week we can actually train, remember, not how many days we want to, how many days we actually can train, we want to look at what our priorities for those sessions are going to be. Namely, what body parts are you looking to most improve at the moment, or what lifts? Say, for example, you really wanted to focus on your posterior chain, so your back, your glutes, and your hamstrings. Not only do you want to make sure that you're allowing enough exercises across the training week to be able to cover all of your bases sufficiently for those muscle groups, you also want to make sure that you're allowing yourself to train all of those muscle groups 2 times per week. Because the research that we have tells us that training a muscle group 2 times per week instead of 1 times per week, especially if you're a natural lifter, is a really easy way to guarantee more gain. So instead of following a bro split where you do chest on Monday, back on Tuesday, shoulders on Wednesday, legs on Thursday, arms on Friday, and then rest for the weekend, and you just obliterate each of those muscle groups once per week on one specific day, you might take the 4 exercises that you want to do for your back across the week and split them up so you're doing 2 on Monday and 2 on Thursday. That frequency will allow you to train at a higher intensity because you're not going to be goosed by the time you come to your 3rd or 4th exercise, which is likely going to allow you to elicit more gains from your training, and also you'll be able to recover from that session better. How many times have you gone in and absolutely smashed a muscle group? For example, for me, when I first started training, I'd go in and obliterate my chest, and my chest would be sore for like 4 days afterwards, but it never grew because I was just hammering it with a ton of junk volume once per week, when I would have been better off picking 2 or 3 really good movements, training them really hard for 2, maybe 3 really hard sets once per week, and then doing that again a second time later on in the week as well. Balance recovery, get enough volume, train with sufficient intensity. It's all coming up Millhouse. Now, some of you will stop me here and point to the first line of this video where I said you don't need to train every day and say, well, Jack, if we have to train every muscle group 2 times per week in order to maximize gains, doesn't it make more sense to train more days per week? Not necessarily, because you still need to recover from your sessions. And from personal anecdote of both my own training and training men and women for 8 years in this industry, alongside the research that we have around training frequency, most people are going to find it hard to recover from more than 4 or 5 training sessions per week. As soon as you get up towards 6, even training every day at 7 sessions a week, your recovery is just going to start tanking. And that's where you hit plateaus quicker and it becomes harder to make progress. So ideally, I would recommend picking a training split like full body or upper lower, or a modified push-pull legs upper lower split, whereby you can train between 3 and 5 days per week and still leave enough time to recover and rest between sessions. I'm not saying you can't train 6 days per week and still make gains, especially when you first start training, where, let's be honest, anything's kind of gonna work, but it just means it's not the most optimal approach in the long run, and you'll probably have to change things up once you get past about 6 to 12 months of serious lifting. Now, I'm not going to run through every single training split possible on the face of the planet because we'd be here all day. But if you do want to see the training splits that I recommend for my clients and that I use in programs for 3, 4, 5, and occasionally 6-day training weeks, then head down to the description and jump on my mailing list so that I can send you a free training split guide. Now, one last really important thing that I want to highlight for all of you before I go is that you shouldn't be trying to cover every single base in a single block of training. Something that I try to do with my clients is that we set 12 weekly goals. So, for the first period of working with me for 12 weeks, I might have a guy training with me who really wants to bring up his delts and his quads, which means that if we're training 4 days per week on an upper-lower split, we might allocate more of his volume on the upper days to training his delts and more of his volume on the lower days towards training his quads, which means that yes, in the short term, we'll be doing less for the hamstrings, the glutes, the chest, the back, the arms, but in the next 12-week block, we can always shift the focus if we've managed to achieve what we wanted in bringing that target body part up. It doesn't mean that those other body parts aren't going to make any gains as long as we program intelligently and you train at a high intensity. It just means they're going to be less of a focus for that 12-week period. But this is why you shouldn't be following the exact same program all year round, because there will be things that you need to tweak and change along the way. We can also look at tweaking how you perform movements to make them bias off one muscle group more than the other if they inherently train more than one muscle group pretty well. For example, with lower body, you often hear women say that they are quad dominant when it comes to squatting, lunging, leg pressing, and all these knee dominant movements, which makes sense if you're somebody who can get your knee right out over your toe and you tend to perform these movements with a more upright torso and that weight transfer going forwards, because then you're going to focus more on your knee joint and stretch your quads more. However, if we were to take someone who is quad dominant with their lunges, but they want to grow their glutes more, we can have them sitting back into a deficit reverse lunge where they sit more into their hips. And now the exact same movement pattern gets tweaked. We transfer our weight back into our hips and we train more of the glutes. We're still doing a lunge. We're still going to get a bit of quad and adductor stimulus from that exercise. It's just that the way we execute it is now going to be more glute focused, so it fits more with what our focus for that training block is going to be. And that's a nice, quick, easy one on training splits. The main takeaways I really want to nail home from this video are that there is no such thing as the perfect training split for every lifter all the time. The best training split for you is going to be dictated by how many days per week you can get to the gym, what body parts you really want to focus on the most, and how well you are recovering from your training between sessions. And don't forget the enjoyment factor too. If you're doing a 3-day split and you fucking hate training full body, don't train full body. Do upper, lower full body or something like that instead. If you like this video, click that subscribe button down below to keep me consistent with my uploads. Apparently liking the video does some good stuff too, so I'd love it if you did that. And jump down into the description if you'd like to jump on the mailing list and get the free training split guide. I'll catch you in the next video.